Hello friends, Brandy here with Falcon Healing Arts. I hope you're doing really well. In today's video, we're talking about how to embrace your divine feminine energy. And I'm talking to both women and men, even though I know it's mainly women who engage with my videos. Both men and women have masculine and feminine energy, and we both have struggles with maintaining a healthy balance between the two. So next week I will be covering how to step into your divine masculine as well. This is an important topic I've been wanting to cover in depth for quite a while because there are so many misconceptions about feminine and masculine energy. And I know many of you who watch my videos, we've talked about Chinese medicine a lot, so you've probably heard me talk a lot about yin and yang. These concepts explain the dual nature. It's how we understand life, that from the Wuji, what we call the infinite nothingness, or what we might call the universe or God, that there was this division, and that's how we experience everything on this plane, on this earth, as a man or woman. And yin and yang are relative terms. So I can think of an example like a body part. My head might be considered a yang part of the body because it's higher up, whereas my feet are more yin because they are closer to the earth. But if I were standing next to someone who was really tall, their head would be considered more yang and mine more yin because of that relative difference. And I know that's a silly example, but this is how, again, we explain everything relative to something else. So it's about relationship. And feminine energy would be considered more yin, and masculine energy would be considered more yang. Just like cold or cool or dark, more hidden energy might be considered yin, and more hot, vibrant, exposed, light energy would be considered yang. So again, it's very relative, and we can't describe a person as just yin or yang. It's situational. So it's important to remember that too. Same with the feminine and masculine energies. We have these expressions within all of us. And we do also have a predominant imbalance, just like we do with yin and yang when we're talking about health. We have an imbalance most of the time with feminine and masculine energy. So when we are having challenges in life, this is a very helpful way to approach them. And it's from a deeper, more spiritual vantage point. Yin and yang and feminine and masculine are opposite but complementary energies. So when we're having problems in our life, it usually points to an imbalance. And when we discover that imbalance, this opens us up to a different way of approaching the problem. And this approach can fix many things in our lives. But what I'm talking to you about today is not just balancing the feminine and masculine. There should be healthy expressions of both energies. And this healthy expression is what we call divine. And that's because when we tap into this higher state of feminine and masculine, what we are doing is really connecting in with our spiritual essence, our pure essence of yin and yang, and our authentic nature. And this is why I did already talk about this subject. I have a video already on balancing feminine and masculine energy that we did in my free Your Authenticity challenge last year. So you can look back on that video if you want. It is more brief, but I do have a very helpful breathing practice that helps you balance both energies. And so you could check out that video. You could even join the challenge, which I still offer, and you just get the recorded videos to your email inbox, and you can process it all on your own. So you can see the description below if you're interested in joining that. So in today's video, we're going to be talking more in depth about the imbalance of feminine and masculine energy, how to recognize if you are in a wounded feminine state, because again, that's the focus, feminine energy. And then from that wounded state, what are the steps you need to take in order to experience the divine? There are three main ones that I can think of now that I'll be sharing with you. Maybe some more will come up as I'm talking, but I feel like it's these three main ones that I want to go over with you. I want to start with talking about the divine feminine first, because I feel like this is the predominant imbalance that I see with my friends, with my family, with my clients, with myself. And who I'm thinking of right now is mainly women. But I do see men doing this too, where we are acting from a wounded feminine state. And it's really hard to see it sometimes. We need to have someone else reflecting back on us often, or to say something for us to really recognize that we are in this state. And so we know that that needs to shift. But instead of rising up, powering up, and rising into a divine feminine, we power up by going sideways instead. So we're still in a wounded state, but we're more in masculine energy. So that is one of the biggest misconceptions, is a lot of the women in my life don't know how to do this. They don't know how to rise up and instead stay wounded and just go sideways. So going, approaching things in the opposite way, the masculine way, which again that's not always the balance that we're seeking, masculine, feminine, but it's going from the wounded to the divine instead. And so the first step is, of course, to recognize when you are in the wounded state, taking responsibility, and then action from here. You need to reflect honestly on how you are showing up energetically. When you have a situation or a relationship that's challenging, it is so important to not just look at who is involved, who you may blame, but instead reflect on yourself. How are you contributing and maybe even fueling this situation? So I'm going to list off the energy that you might feel when you are in the wounded feminine, the characteristics that may define you in those moments. If you are triggered by any of this, that usually means that you are from this wounded state. You're actually relating to it, and this reflection is bothering you. So pay attention to that, please. I have had to do this numerous times. I still have challenges with these imbalances. So please know that it's just from my experience and having the wisdom around this that I've been able to do it over and over again, that I am able to talk to you with extreme confidence about how this works. So when you are in your wounded feminine, you may be too passive. So when we're in our feminine nature, we want to be yielding. We want to allow for things to happen, to unfold. But when we are passive, that means that we're letting things happen to us. And you may get the sense that life is happening to you, that you have very little control. And so you may also be too yielding. You don't push back when you must have firm boundaries. You may start to act like a victim and complain about this to other people. For some reason, we like to have an audience when we are feeling victimized. We like to relate to other people and connect into fellow victims. And this is not really helpful. This is not going to pull you out of this victim state, but rather just validate it. In your wounded feminine, you may be feeling more insecure and very unsure of yourself. Sometimes we may use this wounded feminine energy to manipulate others and situations because we feel we have to. There's no other choice. Poor boundaries, I already mentioned. You may find that you are sacrificing yourself, that instead of pushing back on what other people are telling you to do, you're just taking one for the team to avoid conflict, or maybe you feel like you have to deal with a situation, and so you let yourself take on a degree of abuse. People, both men and women, in their wounded feminine nature, may be overly critical, needy, desperate, and they have very little trust in themselves. So again, friends, do you relate to any of those energies, any of those characteristics? Do they show up often in your life? It is so, so important to recognize this. And so what you are stepping into as the divine feminine energy instead is to be receptive. You allow in, but it is selective. You're choosing to bring in, and you're doing so with very grounded energy. You are, of course, in an empowered state. So this means that you are very in touch with yourself. You are very certain. You trust yourself. You trust the way that life is flowing. You prioritize self-care, knowing that you need to fill your cup first before you can tend to anyone else. You don't let others take advantage of you, and yet you can still be very nurturing, understanding, and have a very strong, open heart. You are emotionally resilient. So when you are moving through challenges, you move all the way through, taking things as they are and learning lessons so that you don't repeat the same mistakes. And this resilience breeds wisdom. When you are in your divine feminine, you are highly intuitive. And again, you trust yourself. You trust that intuition. And you're constantly reflecting on your life. So after you recognize that you're in the wounded state and you really value all the things that are in the divine feminine state, you're then able to take responsibility, make different choices, and take action to live more in the divine feminine. You know that this is an issue with you. You're not afraid to say that, to acknowledge it, and you're just more committed to being it. Now, I shared this example in the video I did previously in the Free Your Authenticity Challenge, but there was a time a few years ago where I was really in a wounded state. I was feeling like a victim of circumstance, and this was not good. It was affecting my marriage, and when I confronted my husband, he was quite shocked because this was not the energy that I usually showed up with. And so it was causing tension in our marriage. And when he was offering advice to help me, I was getting very defensive. It was hard for me to see that he was actually trying to help me. And I thought he was trying to overpower me or ridicule me instead. And it wasn't until I mentioned this situation to the business coaches that I was working with at the time, who were two women. They were like, "You're acting in your wounded feminine. He's getting the message from you that you need to be saved, that you need to be protected. And yet, even if you are receptive to that, you're pushing against it." So I was going from the wounded feminine and not liking what he was reflecting back on me and just fighting him. So resisting that, not listening to it, and then wanting to fight him and actually fight against this masculine energy that he was trying to bring in and honestly help me with. I was misunderstanding his intentions. I was blocking the love. I was not fully receptive. But again, it is so hard to see it in those moments when it's actually happening. So it may take some time when your authentic self is like, that's not who you really are. Or it may take someone else on the outside, like my coaches did for me, to mention this to you. And maybe it's me with you watching this video, where you're starting to get the message now that there's something you're doing, some way that you are showing up that can be changed for the better, going from the wounded to the divine feminine state. So then after recognizing it, after taking responsibility and action, the second step I recommend is that you actually look for these strong divine feminine figures in your life, role models. And these could be not just friends or family, but people in the community, maybe social figures, historical figures that you see as the divine feminine who really inspire you. Learn more about their lives, learn about their struggles, see where they have risen up from the wounded to the divine feminine. And I'm not suggesting that you copy what they did, but rather learning their story, learning how they've overcome challenges by changing their energy is going to allow you to do the same. You will then have the courage to let this divine aspect of you shine forward because you know it's possible. And now, even though I said you may find this person in your friend group, I'd say that's probably highly unlikely, or you would have been helped by them before. So what typically happens, and again, this is not all the time, but what typically happens is that when we are in a wounded state, we tend to hang out with people who are also in a wounded state. It validates our experience. It keeps us stuck. This is something that the ego does because it's familiar to us. It feels safe. It is more challenging for the ego to shift. And so most likely you will need to look outside of your friend group. Think bigger, look further, find someone who has this regal queen energy about them. That is really what you are looking for in the divine feminine. It's a regal energy. It is the goddess. And you can even bring in goddesses into a meditation that may help you with this. Even this oracle deck that I'm referring to all the time, we used in my energy updates. It has so many goddesses in there, and a lot of the stories about these goddesses are how they overcame struggle, and that is how they became this ascended master. So fill your life, fill your mind and heart with more of these divine feminine examples, and that'll be easier for you to shift as well. And my third suggestion for you when trying to embrace your divine feminine state is to connect with the elements of earth and water more. I will refer you back to the series we did last year on the elements of nature. It is a very awesome series. In them, I go over the elements and give you practices, actual rituals that you can do to help you connect in with them. So look back on the videos of the earth element and the water element, do those practices, and I know this will really help you. Both of them are more yin elements, more feminine. So they have more substance and more of a manifesting energy, so more dense, more physical. Both of these elements are also lower in the body, so the first and second chakras. So very grounding. Remember, being grounded is one of the divine feminine aspects. So I know those practices will help you tremendously. That's all I'm going to say. There's so much more information in those two videos, so please check them out. I hope this information helps you move forward in your life in a more balanced and empowered way. If you enjoyed this video, remember to like it and consider sharing it with a friend who could use this support. If you have any other ideas about how to connect in with your divine feminine, please put them in the comments below. I would love to see a discussion there. I'm happy to answer your questions too. Remember that we can do work together one-on-one if you feel like this is an imbalance that you need further support with. Next week, we'll be talking all about embodying the divine masculine. Consider subscribing to this channel if you're not already, and hit the notification bell so you're one of the first to know when I upload that video. I look forward to connecting with you again soon. Many blessings to you, friend.